In Argentina, several rallies and activities of reflection took place on the occasion of the National Day of Remembrance for Truth and Justice. The Russian State Duma agreed to initiate investigations on the creation of biological laboratories by United States specialists in Ukraine. The death toll from twin terrorist attacks in central Somalia rose to 48. Hi, welcome to From the South. I'm your news anchor, Dio Martin, from the Telstar Studios in Havana. We begin with the news. In Argentina, several marches and activities of reflection took place on the occasion of the National Day of Remembrance for Truth and Justice. Different mobilizations were carried out in the Plaza de Mayo and the capital city of Buenos Aires and other parts of the country to commemorate this date. The purpose of the day is to promote the critical and collective analysis of the recent history of the country, 46 years after the coup d'etat that installed a military dictatorship in the nation that governed between 1976 and 1983. The National Day of Memory for Truth and Justice was established in 2002 as a tribute to the victims of that military regime. Argentina's President Alberto Fernandez offered a brief statement in the framework of the commemoration of the National Day of Remembrance for Truth and Justice.
Who were the moral people who took power on March 24, 1976, and made 30,000 Argentine men and women disappear from the face of the earth, killed 1,000, imprisoned 1,000 more, and sent 1,000 more into exile, and we must never forget that.
In an interview for Telesur, the former vice president of Argentina, Amado Boudou, said that the administration of the government of Mauricio Macri was built on neoliberal policies that affected the most vulnerable citizens of the country.
Possibility of meeting again after the pandemic, as you pointed out, it seems to me that Argentina went through Macri. I do not like to say the Macri's pandemic because the truth is that things did not happen. They were done by Macri and his team. They were very specific: the lowering of salaries, lowering pensions, debts, interest rates, public services rates. That happened because Macri did it, because his government did it. And it seems to me that today what is being asked is the memory of a criminal genocide military coup that had the purpose of imposing a model of oppression, a model to low salaries. What this day marks is to retake those banners, to stop the policies of distributed shock of income and sovereignty of the homeland, and to see all these young people with this enthusiasm, with this desire. It seems to me that it shows us that everything that is coming is good.
And in Ecuador, the National Assembly filed away the investment draft law proposed by the government of President Guillermo Lasso, which had been labeled by social movements as a package of neoliberal measures. The measure was rejected in the first hearing with a total of 89 votes against, 46 in favor, and 1 abstention. The event took place after the main legislative seats manifested their opposition to the measure. Social sectors denounced that the proposed law promoted by the executive included the privatization of strategic sectors of the country in addition to multiple economic conditions imposed by the International Monetary Fund, such as cuts to sectors like education, health, and the elimination of multiple subsidies. Moving along now to Peru, Prime Minister Aníbal Torres of the country confirmed on Wednesday that they will go to international bodies to try to reverse the Constitutional Court's decision on the pardon granted to ex-President Alberto Fujimori. The Prime Minister indicated that the government will seek to protect the fundamental rights of all victims of human rights violations during the Fujimori government, while assuring that the actions of the executive will be in line with the constitutional framework. This pardon for Fujimori, initially approved in 2017, was revoked in 2018 after it was considered that the benefit was a result of negotiations between former President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski and a son of Fujimori, who was a congressman at the time. Alberto Fujimori was sentenced to 25 years in prison in 2009 for crimes against humanity in the context of the massacres perpetrated in Barrios Altos and La Cantuta between 1999 and 2002. In Uruguay, finished a campaign for the referendum on the urgent consideration bill scheduled for next Sunday. The referendum will ponder the removal or acceptance of 135 of the 476 articles of the urgent consideration law. Among the most questioned points of this law are the limitations of the right to strike, the extension of penalties to minors, and the permission granted to the police and military to search people and vehicles as part of routine procedures. National pollsters forecast there will be a narrow difference among the yeas and nays options, as blank or undecided votes still prevail. In Chile, social and political movements demand justice for political prisoners and victims of police violence during the social unrest that occurred in 2019. The National Assembly of Relatives of Political Prisoners and Victims of Police Repression gathered on Thursday in Santiago to demand the approval of an amnesty law that allows the release of all those detained for exercising their right to protest. According to human rights organizations, in 2019 at least 20,000 people were arrested in an arbitrary manner and some 2,200 were injured by police brutality. During the meeting of the victims' families, the senator and victim of police violence, Fabiola Campillay, reiterated her commitment to fight for the release of all the detainees.
We're not going to rest until the young people are released from the jails. And also, why not? Send them a tremendous greeting, little ones. We are fighting the streets to get you out, and we are not going to give it up the fight. We are not going to give it up because you were brave. You went out to the streets to fight for what we should be given, to fight for justice, to fight for health care and education, and for many other things, for decent pensions. And today, unfortunately, they are being held hostage.
On Thursday in El Salvador, the date marks the 42nd anniversary of the death of Monsignor Arnulfo Romero, recognized for his struggle in the defense of human rights. The events began on Thursday and will continue out during the whole week. Among other events, there will be a solemn Eucharist in the Metropolitan Cathedral of San Salvador that will be extended to multiple parishes, with festivities in honor of the one who was elevated to saint by the Vatican in 2018. During the armed conflict in El Salvador, Romero was a defender of the most needy and showed great inclination for pastoral activity. After multiple threats and failed attempts, Arnulfo Romero was assassinated on March 24, 1980 at the age of 62, while celebrating Mass in San Salvador. We're going to take a short break now. Please join us again after this. Hi, and welcome back to From the South. United States President Joe Biden must provide explanations regarding his son's involvement in the operation of biological laboratories in Ukraine. Russia's State Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin said on his Telegram account that Biden is obliged to explain to the world community the evidence concerning the activity of biological laboratories discovered in the course of the military operation in Ukraine. Volodin said the U.S. president funded research and the implementation of the United States military biological program, an investment fund run by his son Hunter, and it is obvious he was aware of that activity. This is part of the inquiry by the State Duma and the Federation Council regarding the biolabs found in Ukraine. Iran and Russia are studying a strategy of banking and financial cooperation to evade the coercive and unilateral measures imposed by the United States and the European Union. Iranian ambassador in Russia, Kazem Jalali, noted that the aim is to achieve recognition of the Mir payment system on Iran's territory and stressed that the connection of the country's banks to the Financial Message Transfer System, SPFS, which is a Russian equivalent of the Society for Global Interbank and Financial Communications, SWIFT, will be studied. The diplomat stated that cooperation with Kremlin authorities in efforts to strengthen these areas and carry out multiple activities in the future will be maintained. And on Thursday, U.S. President Joe Biden backed Russia's exclusion from the G20 group of major economies, while suggesting that Ukraine could be invited to the group's upcoming events. In this way, the United States president does not contribute to the release of tensions and continues with the policy of total encirclement to affect the Russian economy as much as possible.
We did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon Russia. It's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well, including European countries and our country as well. My answer is yes. That depends on the G20. That was raised today, and I raised the possibility if that can't be done, if Indonesia and others do not agree, then we should, in my view, ask to have both Ukraine be able to attend the meetings, as well as basically Ukraine being able to attend the G20 meeting and observe.
Wu Xian, the spokesperson, voiced concern of relevant reports on U.S. biolabs in Ukraine. He highlighted that the United States, which conducts more military biological activities than any other country, has 336 biolabs in 30 countries around the world.
According to open sources, dozens of biolabs in Ukraine operated under the U.S. Department of Defense commands. These U.S. activities severely lack transparency while having undeniable safety risk. Previously, many locations of U.S. overseas biolabs saw outbreaks of rare infectious disease, which triggered protests and questions in multiple countries. These are important reasons the U.S. biolabs in Ukraine aroused broad concern in international society.
On Thursday, NATO declared that it will not send troops to Ukraine. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stated that NATO will not deploy troops in Ukrainian territory to avoid the contact with Russian forces, answering a question about Poland's proposal to send a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine. The official thanked all the offers made by the organization's allies and declared that NATO should not allow a greater escalation of the conflict and clash with Russia, which could lead to the deployment of the alliance's troops in the country, considering more dangerous and devastating. On Thursday, Brazilian Foreign Minister Carlos França said that the Brazilian government is against unilateral and targeted sanctions, referring to the measures adopted by several countries against Russia over Moscow's special military operation in Ukraine. He also stated that his government does not agree to remove Russia from the G20.
Brazil does not agree with the implementation of the unilateral and selective sanctions. These measures, besides being illegal according to the international law, specifically maintain the interesting of some countries, such as the supply of the oil and gas to the European nations. On the other hand, the sanctions after products essential to the survival of a large part of the world population, meaning food and inputs needed of the production of that food. The fertilizers we need are equally essential to prevent hunger and ensure the economic survival and political stability of developing nations, countries that represent 3/4 of the world population.
While in Moscow, Russia, in an exclusive interview for Telesur at the headquarters of the Foreign Ministry of the Eurasian nation with Alexander Shatinin, head of the Russian Foreign Ministry's Department for Latin America, the high officer stated firmly that his country will adapt to the new situation and that they will consolidate their independence, autonomy, and sovereignty.
We, our economy, will adapt to the new situation. We are going to consolidate our independence, autonomy, and sovereignty, and we are going to achieve a new quality in our relations, understanding that there are partners we can trust and there are partners, in quotation marks, we cannot trust. That will be one of the most important conclusions in this whole situation.
The head of the Russian Foreign Ministry's Department for Latin America confirmed the willingness of his government to continue strengthening ties with their friend countries in Latin America.
We do not want to impose our criteria or patterns on any of the Latin American countries. We do not force them to pick a side. We aspire to build our relations on a pragmatic basis, as far as the economy is concerned, on the principle of economic cooperation and the need to diversify ties. We are ready to develop political, economic, community, and cultural relations with our friends in Latin America to the extent that they are ready to do the same with Russia.
We have more news coming up after one final short break. Please stay with us. Hi and welcome back. The death toll from twin attacks in central Somalia climbed to 48. According to the leader of Hirshabelle State, the al-Shabaab insurgents claimed they were targeting politicians ahead of elections. The first attack in Hirshabelle's Beledweyne district was carried out by a suicide bomber and killed 2 local lawmakers, including Amina Mohamed Abdi and several of her guards as she campaigned for re-election. Then a car bomb exploded outside Beledweyne's main hospital, where the injured were being taken for treatment, killing dozens, causing buildings to collapse and destroying several vehicles. Local authorities declared that the security of the electoral process will be reinforced.
God willing, we will not be disappointed. We will continue working on public service, whether it's about holding elections or other social development aspects. God willing, we rely on God and will do all what we can. We are urging to be very vigilant. We are ordering all security agencies to beef up security.
In Cape Town, South Africa's tourist capital, it has been 4 years since it nearly ran dry during a drought that left the city limping towards a day zero when all the pipes would be empty. At the beaches of that coastal city, swimmers shower off sand from their feet, irrigation pipes water the region's famed vineyards, and Shadrach Magras, a local resident, fumes as he fills a barrel with water so he can flush his toilet. It has been 4 years since South Africa's tourist capital nearly ran dry. South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, with race playing a determining factor, a World Bank report said last week. According to a witness, city trucks that deliver water to the community are unreliable. This makes the situation even worse. On Thursday, Ethiopia's government announced an immediate end to its 16-month-long civil war to give way for unimpeded relief supplies into the war-ravaged Tigray region. A statement by the official communications service declared that the government made a call upon the donor community to redouble their generous contributions to relieve the situation, and reiterated its commitment to work in collaboration with relevant organizations to expedite the provision of humanitarian assistance to those in need. The government also called on Tigray's forces must reciprocate the truce for the humanitarian situation to improve in the region. It is, however, not clear if the immediate humanitarian truce is a step forward a comprehensive ceasefire. On Thursday, Togo's capital city, Lome, holds Africa's first cybersecurity summit. Africa is developing exponentially in terms of internet connectivity and cybersecurity. According to Sina Lawson, Togo's digital economy minister, the objectives of the summit are to establish a specific legal and regulatory framework and strengthen Africa's cooperation in cybersecurity, fighting against cybercrime, and bringing together personalities from the public and private sectors around the issues of cybersecurity. The Togolese government and the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa hope to move forward on this matter. India sent the 5th consignment of 2,000 metric tons of wheat to Afghanistan out of the 50,000 to be donated as humanitarian aid to the South Asian nation. According to the Customs Commissioner, the initiative came from the Ministry of External Affairs to send the aid through the Atari-Wagah border. The aid will further strengthen the relationship between the two countries. The first consignment reached Afghanistan through Pakistan on February 26. Meanwhile, the second convoy of humanitarian assistance arrived on March 3rd. The 4th shipment was dispatched again via the Atari-Wagah border on March 15th. With that, we've come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Tulsa English. You can also join us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Tulsa English, I'm Leo Martin. Thanks for watching.